very much. Now, the pressure is growing on the companies that own and manage more than 100,000 leasehold flats and houses which are designed for older residents. The companies that run them charge significant annual fees for maintenance, services, management and repairs. And when the leaseholders sell their home, there's an exit fee to pay. That starts at 1% of the sale price, but can be considerably more. The Office of Fair Trading is investigating these exit fees, which it says could be unfair. And last week it said that a number of retirement home companies were negotiating with it to stop charging them in future. Well, more than 100 angry residents from many parts of the country held a noisy protest meeting at the Houses of Parliament recently, and I went along to hear their views.
I'd like to welcome everyone to the first meeting of Carmex, and I must admit I'm bowled over by the attendance. It's fantastic. We have people here.
My name is Sue Langdown, and my mother, who died at the beginning of September this year, lived at Barton Mill Court in Canterbury, and I'm the executor to her estate. I let Peverel know as soon as my mother had died, because I thought I ought to do that, and within days they had communicated and said, well, yes, that's fine, but you must do this and you must do that, you must do the other, and all this is going to cost.
Just go through the costs for me.
The first thing was that my husband and I were persuaded, really, that we should deal with Retirement Home Search, which is their estate agency branch. We had no idea, actually, at that time it was owned by the consortium, by Peverel. Because we were bereaved and because we didn't really know what we were going to do, we said yes. We were a bit shocked about the 2%, but thought that we would get a very good and perhaps preferential service. And then we were advised that we would not be able to proceed until we had paid a 1% plus VAT exit fee, a 1% plus VAT contingency fee. And then, when we did actually have an offer for the flat, which was nothing to do with a retirement home search, but we still had to pay the 2%, fair enough, but we were told that we had to pay £150 plus VAT for the purchaser's information pack, which we had to pay for. I said, well, surely you ought to give that to them automatically. No, we had to pay. And then the next thing was that they wanted a copy of the probate document, and they wanted £65 plus VAT for registering it. When I said, well, what does that mean? The girl on the other end said, I just scan it in and I file it. I said, well, why do you want that amount of money? And she said, well, it's in the lease, you have to pay, or that's it and you have to pay.
Well, about half of the retirement homes in the UK are managed by the company Sue Langdown referred to, called Peverel. It's owned by Consensus Business Group, and I have to say most of the complaints aired at that meeting were about those companies. We invited the managing directors of Peverel and Consensus onto Moneybox to answer some of the criticisms, but after more than a week's consideration, they decided not to appear. The man who organised the meeting at Parliament was Liberal Democrat Ed Davey, the MP for Kingston and Surbiton.
They're having very high service charges for some of their leaseholders, and when you then unpick that, it's partly because they're charging very high insurance premium, it's partly because they may be charging a grossly inflated rent for the resident warden's flat, which the rent of which falls on the leaseholders. They may be having over-the-top costs for contracts, such as those for care line services. Some of the leases have exit fees for when a leasehold is sold on. And there are many other examples I could give you. And they build up to quite heavy increases in service charges.
Let's just talk about the manager's flat, because that's something that does seem to be exercising a lot of people. These are the people who live on site. The whole of that rent falls on the residents, and some residents have complained about how much it is.
The law only defines a reasonable rent when you go to the Leasehold Valuation Tribunal, the LVT. And before that, then it's a matter of interpretation. But what residents have been finding is they've gone to the local market and compared the rent that they're being charged, and it's very clear that in many cases they're being charged a rent grossly over the local market rent.
Yes, but when we've put this to the companies concerned, they've said specifically that if people come to them with these concerns, they will offer to reduce rents. And in many cases, they have done that, haven't they, without going to a tribunal?
Well, they have indeed, but my concern is that people, particularly companies in the Consensus Business Group, have got well over 1,000 of these blocks, and they've reduced the rent on a small number where people have complained.
What they say to us, though, is that they have done some reviews, and in some cases they found the rents charged are in fact too low.
Well, if that's the case, and they can make their case, and it would stand up in front of an LVT, then that's absolutely fine. But what residents are saying is, can we ensure that the law is implemented, that the rents charged are only reasonable?
Ed Davey MP. Well, residents in some developments have taken over the management of their properties, but Consensus Business Group says that has not reduced the service charge significantly. In a statement made through its PR company, it told Moneybox, "Our review of service charges in the developments that have recently changed managers has shown that overall service charges were only 1 to 2% lower, while the level of services was reduced. This reinforces our view that our charges are extremely competitive." And on the exit fees currently being reviewed by the Office of Fair Trading, Consensus said, "Ultimately, only the courts can decide on the lawfulness of these fees." Well, you can let us know your experiences with retirement developments and the fees through our website, bbc.co.uk/moneybox. Many of you